Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for this Wildscreen Network webinar. My name's Lucy and I'm Wildscreen's CEO. For those of you who are new to Wildscreen, we're a charity based here in Bristol, and our mission is really simple. We try to connect people with nature using storytelling. And recently we've been working with another charity called Film Access Scotland. And this webinar has been organised as part of their 1.5 degree film challenge project, where they invited everyone to make a 90-second film to share their thoughts on climate change and how it affects individuals and communities. The project was launched last year, COP26, which was obviously hosted in Glasgow, and selected films were shown at the New York Times Climate Hub. For the 2022 cycle, which is this year, of the 1.5 degree project, we thought it'd be a great opportunity to work together to showcase opportunities in wildlife and environmental film to emerging talent, but particularly talent based outside of Bristol. So for those of you that maybe don't know, not everybody, a lot of the world thinks that the wildlife film and TV industry centres around Bristol, and there's a huge hub here, and it's been a launchpad for lots of great productions and companies. It's the home of the BBC Natural History Unit, but there are also lots of really great production companies, both out in the UK, but also around the world as well. So we wanted to shine a spotlight on those particular regions today. And staying in Scotland, we're really excited today to have the co-founders of Scotland's largest independent production company that specialises in wildlife film and TV, Maramedia, joining us today. So we have Nigel with us at the moment, and then we also have Jackie, who will be joining us. She's actually in Laguna Beach in LA at the moment for a industry conference, so she will be hopefully logging on soon from that very glamorous location. Just a little bit of a background about Nigel. So he is a world-renowned TV producer. He particularly specialises in natural history, but also children's TV production. So he spent 16 years at the BBC, which was split between senior management at BBC Scotland and also as a series producer in the BBC Natural History Unit. He's developed a reputation as an innovative format creator with credits ranging from Big Cat Diary, Springwatch and The Really Wild Show to cult game shows like Raven, Balamory. So any of you who are of a particular age, I'm sure you've watched Balamory, and also Live and Kicking. I didn't realise until today, Nigel, which I was very excited about. And in 2019, Nigel set up Maramedia with his partner Jackie. And as I said, it's a huge production company based out of Scotland, and they are the largest supplier of natural history from Scotland to the international market. Jackie, who will be hopefully joining us shortly, is actually a conservation biologist by background. She also trained at the BBC Natural History Unit and was able to merge her science knowledge with her filmmaking knowledge. So she really understands where the scientists are coming from and how to kind of get that across on screen. She's worked across lots of blue chip natural history series, as well as presenter-led series. And then obviously she left the BBC to set up Maramedia with Nigel. And Maramedia has created some really beautiful series, many of which have won Wildscreen Panda Awards. So they must be good. So some of those series are Hebrides, Highland Scotland's Wild Heart, Hotel Armadillo, Wild Way of the Vikings, and they've also been doing some docs, Born to be Wild, and you've also been doing some children's stuff recently as well, I believe. And what's really great actually is they quite often have Obi-Wan Kenobi, so Ewan McGregor, narrating lots of their natural history films. So that really brings in a different audience, which is amazing. So thank you so much for joining us today, Nigel. How are you doing today?
I'm extremely well. It's a beautiful sunny day in Scotland, and it's actually cloudy in Laguna Beach, where Jackie is hanging out at Real Screen. In fact, Jackie just did WhatsApp me, and I wonder if it's because there's just one link that she's not able to go online. So I don't know if, Lara, you could resend the Zoom link to Jackie, and that might do the trick. It might be there was just one link or something, but she is there. So
yeah, great. We'll get Lara to connect with Jackie, and hopefully she can join us in a bit. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Maramedia and what you guys make. Then we'll go into a little bit more detail about types of productions, the roles involved in making natural history films, how you see the future of natural history filmmaking going, and then also some of your top tips for those looking to join the industry as emerging talent. And then also for you guys watching, and there'll be plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So please do pop your questions in the Q&A box below, and we will get to them at the end. But yeah, please share your questions. This is definitely for you. So Nigel, what led you to set up Maramedia, and why specifically in Scotland, apart from it being a beautiful place, of course?
Well, like a lot of natural history filmmakers, Jackie and I were based in Bristol for a number of years. And it was around about, it was actually about 2010, 2011 that we left, and we fancied a crack at being an independent production company. And you know, you thought if we're not going to do it now, we'll never do it. So so we made that decision, and we landed a commission really quite quickly. We got a commission from BBC Scotland to make the series about the Hebrides that you referred to, Lucy, and it was really our big break. But the commissioner, who was called Ewan Angus, who, you know, we should pay tribute to, he was a great commissioner at BBC Scotland, and he said, well, yeah, we'll go for this, but the deal is you're going to have to come to Scotland, because if you're making this landmark series on the Hebrides and it's funded by Scotland, you've got to be here. So one of the answers to that question is we had no choice. But actually we didn't mind at all, because Scotland's such a beautiful place. Jackie had a long-standing family connection with Scotland, and I'd also worked here before as a exec producer in the children's department. So we were really happy to come here. So it was kind of half no choice and half a really brilliant opportunity. And then as the years went by, we've made more content both about Scotland. We've never stopped making stuff about Scotland, and also making projects and films about places and people and animals all over the world.
Nice. I think that's one thing that's really good about you guys, is you really do make films about stuff that we, us people, there's people from all over the world listening in, but for us in the UK, quite often we're watching wildlife programs about other people's nature, and actually it's really lovely to focus on what's close to you, and kind of bring those audiences closer. So that's a really great thing that you guys do there. So for those of you, for those at home who maybe don't watch wildlife or haven't really thought about how you would go about making a wildlife series, how do you do it? What's the kind of the process, roughly? I realise it's a lot of work, but a general outline of what it takes to make a wildlife series.
Well, everything obviously starts with an idea, and we spend a lot of our time doing this stuff called development. Actually, I say we spend a lot of our time doing this stuff called development. The reality is we can never find quite enough time to do development, but that's always the starting point. Some of the most successful and popular things we've done, I have to say, the development sort of comes to you by writing something down almost like the back of an envelope, and then suddenly you've realized you've hit on something really, really great, and certainly that's been the starting point for a lot of our shows. We did a series recently called Stormborn, which is a mixture of Nordic, Norwegian wildlife, Icelandic wildlife, and Scottish wildlife, and really we just wrote that down. It really was a sort of light bulb moment, and we thought, oh, wait a minute, maybe intercut stories of these Nordic countries would work really, really well. So development is always the beginning of it, and then the next bit is to try and sell your idea, because it's no good having this wonderful idea in your head without being able to sell it. So a very significant amount of time is also pitching and generally being endlessly rejected, because it's very seldom a quick win. So we get very used to people saying no and no and no, but persistence definitely pays off, and you grow a thicker skin, and eventually you break through, and then once you've got a broadcaster behind you, then hopefully commissions flow a little bit more, which has definitely been the story for Maramedia. And then you put your schedule together, you recruit your team, and then you're on the road to making your series, which can last a very long time. You know, some of the mega blue chip things that are mostly made in Bristol can have, you know, a 3 or 4 year long schedule. Some of the recent ones we've made have been a bit tighter. Stormborn was shot over 18 months, and the series we have in post-production at the moment was actually shot over the course of 8 months in a dry season in Kenya. So sometimes you can tighten your schedule and put more resources in and carve it up that way. And then you deliver it, and there you go, and you hope everyone loves it, and you get terrific audience figures, and, you know, a great critical response. And sometimes all those things happen.
And obviously, if you make something great, hopefully that makes the whole commissioning process a bit easier the next time, because you have that kind of that stuff to show, and the audiences you know, really love it. So so you talked a little bit about once you've got that commission, you then pull a team together. So can you talk us through a little bit about what your production team looks like? You know, who's on that team, what are their roles, and maybe a little bit about what their background is as well.
Maramedia we're actually quite unusual as a production company, in that we have a team which is always in place, which can make something. And although we do bring in freelancers and people on contracts, of course we do, what we've built is we've built a sort of integrated unit that can always shoot you a film, and it's a little bit unusual. So we have, you know, we've got a couple of people on the team. If you go and have a look at our website, you'll see core team. And what's very unusual with our core team is we have 2 people who are actually wildlife cameramen, and they are on our staff. And I think we're possibly the only production company that's like that. You know, we tend to be overall possibly a little bit smaller in terms of headcount than a lot of other production companies, but our ethos is different. So, and maybe it's part and parcel of being based in Scotland, is that we've brought these people into the team, and they're a kind of core part of it. So you know, we can kind of cover everything, including the technical side, editing and shooting entirely within our team.
Nice. So one other thing that's really great about Mara actually is that you really nurture new talent. Like, you really invest in people when they're part of your team. You know, I think in sometimes the industry is renowned for kind of giving short contracts and people not really knowing where the next role is going to be, but you guys really do invest in people, and you do nurture. So, you know, what, for somebody trying to break into the industry, particularly maybe in one of the regions, what would your kind of tip be in terms of what role should they kind of focus on and think about applying for?
I mean, the cornerstone of everything really is stories, and creativity, and ideas. It's the currency of our industry. So if somebody writes in emails or calls up with a great idea, it would be very surprising if we didn't want to chat to them, you know. And actually it's quite surprising. You think we'd be deluged by lots and lots of people all the time, you know, coming to knock on our door, but it's not the case. We have a kind of steady flow. So I would encourage people to, you know, to find something that they can market, that they can sell about themselves, you know. And I can see if there's a Maramedia.
Yeah. Might have Jackie.
For goodness sake. There we go.
Hello.
The weather doesn't look that gloomy. It's nice.
I know, but it should be blue behind me.
True. True. How are you, Jackie?
I'm good. Sorry we had some technical setup, but yes, it's good to join you.
It's good. We're doing an international live broadcast. I mean, there's going to be problems. It's really nice to see you. We've just been talking about kind of what the process is in making a wildlife series, what you guys have in terms of a production team, and what's quite unique about you guys. in terms of having, staff camera people and that kind of thing. And we were just talking about, you also nurture a lot of emerging talent and how that works. So I guess this might be a question for you, Jackie, actually. So I was saying I introduced you before, by the way, and gave them your credentials. But you obviously have a scientific background. Do you guys see that as essential to kind of work in the wildlife film and TV industry, or could people have other kind of skill sets that could be applied?
No, I think you can have a range of different skill sets. I think you need people in the team that have got that. I think if you were a group that had nothing, but I mean, often we find some of the best ideas are we'll pair scientists with people that have got really creative visual ideas, or have got a strong environmental story. They may not be a biologist, and my personal belief is that if you're going to have any chance in getting the environment on the agenda of more people, you need a wider group of ideas. So whilst I don't think you could do it without having anybody with a zoology, botany or background within the team, it doesn't mean that has to be you. So I think that the more ideas you've got and the passion you've got for it as a subject is more critical than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in terms of so we've got quite a lot of potential emerging talent or people kind of looking to get into the industry joining us today. I guess the one thing that maybe people are always scared to ask about is, what kind of, how do the contracts work? Are you always freelance? Can you get, proper full-time positions? What's the entry salary kind of like? Can you guys kind of give a rough idea of what that looks like? Because it does tend to be quite secretive, just in the creative industries generally, not just natural history, but are you guys able to give any insights into that?
Yeah, I mean, we employ people on all kinds of different basis, and there's no set rule. I mean, some of the positions can't be freelance. So, for example, if you enter as a researcher or a junior researcher, as a lot of people do, that's always it's always a payroll position. You can't be a freelance researcher. That job doesn't exist. So you'll have to come in on a short-term contract.
And contracts can be really short-term as well. I think that's that's not unusual. It's not a failure if your contracts are a few weeks. I think everybody would expect to do that, and it's just a good chance to try things out, and for us to try you out and you to try us out. It's a two-way.
Yes, yeah, and so there's I guess most people who've come into Maramedia have come in as researchers or as camera ops, and probably the main person who's on our team as a camera operator, Fergus Gill, he actually came straight from Glasgow Uni and joined Maramedia, and he never left actually. And we have a AP who's sort of moving across to producer, Fiona Donaldson, and she came from the University of West of Scotland. She had not studied wildlife or the environment. But she just had a passion for telling stories and making stuff. And
but she had studied filmmaking, but not specifically wildlife filmmaking. Yeah. And we had somebody else that we also took as a graduate who had studied sort of more journalistic filmmaking. And then recently we've had a load of runners who are interested in coming in, and some of them are firemen and all sorts of different backgrounds, but have got a real passion for the environment, are interested in it, and they've just been working with us as runners. And we would, they may come back and do a bit more.
Nice. And as you say, Jackie, I think having all those different perspectives, it just enriches the storytelling, doesn't it? Because you have people from all walks of life, sharing their experiences, what appeals to them, what they would watch, what would engage them. That can only, boost the story. So it's really great to hear that you guys are, you don't have to be a zoology graduate, to get your foot in the door. There's actually lots of space for everyone. So it's really encouraging to hear.
And we've also had people that have gone away, have come and done something, and then have gone away and done a degree or studied something a bit further, and then come back to us at a later spot as well. So it doesn't. there are all sorts of routes, and we don't have a set path.
Yeah, no, it's really
we're terribly short of production coordinators and production managers, and if anybody out there on the webinar is interested in that side of the business, which can be really fulfilling and give you a really great look at the way that the parts of the machine fit together, you know, there's always going to be an opening for someone who's up for being a coordinator, production management. You know, we cannot get enough. Boy,
no. I think I think there's an international shortage of production managers, coordinators, and executives. It's definitely there's a real need for a talent pipeline there. Just for those who don't know what, I mean, I really struggle sometimes to understand what a production manager is, what a production executive is. Can you just kind of give us a 101 on what they do, and kind of maybe what those skills are that you need that you could maybe transfer from maybe another type of course or profession into wildlife TV production?
Like production management is what puts the structure into the, you know, into your production. You know, they run, above all, they run the budget, they run the budget and the schedule. Those are the kind of twin pillars of the production management operation. You know, and without
they're often,
go ahead, Jackie.
So they're often the glue that actually makes a program makeable in many ways, because I think, you know, you often hear the glossy side of the editorial and the ideas and where you're going to go and how you shoot it, but actually they're the people that coordinate that it's possible within the time frame, and I think there are a lot of sort of associated skills in terms of organisers. I think, you know, they're people that have an understanding of budgets, of finance, of keeping things on track. I mean, there are a lot of associated careers. I think a lot of people in Scotland have been look at associated professions, where anybody that has got those kind of skills that can project manage something are definitely transferable.
So highly organised people we're looking for.
Yeah, negotiating and doing a deal, you know, it's actually, you know, the sort of, you know, the business side of it. It's quite fun, you know, and we did this series Chasing the Rains, which I mentioned. All the production management on that production was remote, you know, so the team were 100% in Kenya, and 70% of them were actually Kenyans. So the production manager on that, Lucy Roy, she had to build all these relationships with people all over Kenya, negotiating park fees, working with the fixer. And actually you'd think, gosh, you know, isolated from it, but she made so many, you know, virtual friends, and actually had a really enjoyable time on that production. And she'd not done lots of natural history before, but she found it the most rewarding production she'd ever done. So yeah,
I think and I think with a smaller company, we slightly more unusually, we tend to bring everybody in, so that we will often ask for ideas from production management. So we don't tend to keep people in their boxes. I think it works really well. So we had one of our production trainees ended up doing the art department on a kids show for a while, and then is going, you know, back into different roles. So I think that's what's nice about a smaller company, is that people get a sense of all the different roles, and it's a very good training ground, because you can take and run with whatever you are good or passionate about.
Yeah,
so it's quite unique.
Go ahead, Lucy.
I was just going to say, that's another really unique thing about you guys is, you know, you do natural history, but you also do children. So for somebody coming into a company of your size, working on that span of productions, like what an opportunity for somebody, you know, who doesn't quite know what role they want to go into or what genre they want to focus on. It's really it's such a great opportunity for someone.
We are not very hierarchical, you know, and because we're relatively small, we have that model of, you know, small gang of people for a long time, you know. And again, thinking of Chasing the Rains, which we're just in final post with now, you know, Faith Musembi, who's a Kenyan producer director, joined us on that, and she's dipped into every bit of the production. You know, she did the field bit, and she oversaw an edit and the onlines and the grade. Now she's helping us kind of complete the dub, doing the fact checking, paying the bills, not personally. So, you know, and that's true of quite a few people who've joined us over the course of you know, the course of Maramedia's existence, for sure.
Yeah, what an experience for someone to have. I think that, you know, we're not in any way dissing the BBC Natural History Unit, but actually, you know, there's a lot to be said sometimes for working for a smaller company. You know, we're a small charity here, and you kind of have to, you spread yourselves quite thinly, but you get so much more opportunity to different things.
I think if you've got a sort of can-do attitude, it's by far the most, you know, rewarding and interesting way, and you can find yourself going down all sorts of different paths. You know, we involve everybody, you know, the whole team, whatever their role or background in developing ideas. And if people are passionate about something, you know, we'll try to make it happen as much as we can.
Yeah, nice. So what would be your kind of top tips for somebody who was thinking, you know, maybe they took part in the 1.5 degree film challenge, they got a real, you know, enthusiasm for making kind of wildlife environmental films. What would be your top tips for somebody trying to get into the industry if they had no experience?
I mean, on the creative side of it, you can't beat make your own film. And you know, we're in a world now where everybody can make their own film. You know, Jackie and my children, who just walked through the room just now, they're 14 and 15, they make their own films, and every teenager now makes their own films, and then they post them on TikTok, they post them on Instagram, and they post them on YouTube. So that this is the way of the world, you know. So everyone can make.
We just lost Nigel briefly there.
Oh.
His microphone seems to have gone.
Yeah, there's a. I mean, I can hear you again now. I would also say, do whatever, make your film, write a load of ideas out, think about, watch masses and see which things you like and you don't like and why. I mean, it's advice that's gone there for a long time. But I'd also add, don't be too precious about it, because, you know, there are millions of people. I'm at this conference where there are thousands of people all selling crazy ideas. You know, there are more ideas than you can kind of deal with. But I think come up with lots, but don't sort of hide them away. Be freely, you know, because if you're new to it, no one is going to say, yes, great, we'll give you loads of money, you can go and make that film. So I think you've got to show that you're the sort of person, you know, later on, that's got all of those ideas and that you can follow it up. And if you've got a unique speciality, whether it's, I don't know, a language or a place that you know really well, or a sport or a particular bit of the environment or animal you're passionate about, use that and find somewhere where that skill will be really useful, and offer to work. I think particularly, you know, where there are charities or where there are opportunities that where the people haven't got so much money to necessarily make a film, but it gives you the experience to really do it, you should go and take that as much as possible.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, do use networks like Wildscreen, and particularly, you know, because I think, you know, with us being up here in Scotland and other, you know, companies who are not in Bristol, then those, hello.
We can hear you. Yep.
I thought I was dropping off the end there. So I went to one of the Wildscreen like networking events the other week, and actually it was absolutely brilliant. But I was like one of the only kind of senior producer type people there, and like all these researchers were coming up with these great ideas, and I walked out thinking, wow, there's like 6 people here that, you know, could potentially come and work with us, and they all had ideas that were really great. You know, they knew about a particular place, or they had a little experience with a particular animal, you know. So the networks are really, really helpful and useful.
And I'd add to that, don't, you know, this is something I did many years ago, is don't assume that the only networks are the people running the companies or the execs. Really, really make the most of your peer group as a network, because although somebody else starting out can't suddenly give you a job, they eventually will be in that position, and so will you. And if you support your peers and learn from each other, because if you've got the expertise in, say, making a film, they want to be a presenter, you want to, you know, someone else might want to edit, get together and use your skills and learn those, hone them and practice them, and then you become attractive as a group of people. You know, I mean, we would certainly meet, and I think most people would, a group of people that have actually coordinated themselves to do things, and they can give you morale when it's all got too much. You can all go and have a drink or or whatever, and you know, and then you'll get there and you don't feel like you're on your own. So you know, don't be precious, be very, very collaborative, you know, with your peers as well as to anybody, and don't worry if people don't get back, just keep at it.
Before you came online, Jackie, I was talking about the process of what we're going through now and pitching things and people just endlessly saying no, you know.
It doesn't get any easier. It's just as scary, yes. And you know, and you're constantly, you know, pitching. And I think one thing that we notice more, because we're outside Bristol, is that I think it's really important to have like a diverse range of voices, and not just the diverse in terms of, you know, everybody's desperately trying to get a range of voices, but a range of voices from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all sets of education. And if you have everybody together too much, you lose that sense of really understanding a place. So, you know, we're really keen to tell stories that are local or relevant to different audiences, and you only get that by having people from different places.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in terms of just very practically, so you were saying, you know, make your own films, you know, approach us as a group, you know, how should somebody approach a company like you? You know, is it sending an email and asking for a coffee? Is it sending a CV? Do you advertise jobs? You know, what really practically, how could people kind of get their first role, if you like? What's the best way to approach it?
I mean, so you can, Nigel, I would say we rarely advertise jobs. I mean, we do sometimes, and we'll put them on Worldscreen, and we'll put them on the various Facebook groups around, but mostly it's word of mouth. So I think, and normally you want someone immediately or soon. So I think the best thing is for us to know as many people as possible, and we might meet someone and think they're great, but there's no job or there's no project for them. 6 months, 2 months, a year later, they might be the perfect fit. But if we hadn't met them first of all, in the old days when people came into office, you know, we had work experience people for a week, which was great because it gave everybody a chance to see, you know, and hopefully that will start again a bit more soon. But I think it's just saying hello and say, you know, can we go for a coffee, or here's my background, or can you give me some advice, you know, and that it's a quick chat.
Yeah. And the thing to remember is that everybody's been there, so everyone's had to be the one that's kind of reached out to somebody. So the person that you're asking for that coffee knows exactly what it feels like to put your account on the line and kind of be brave. So don't ever feel, you know, that you're, you know, alone in that. Everyone's had to go through that. So scared, I think, is a good tip as well. What were you going to say, Nigel?
I was going to say another thing is that the pandemic, of course, and I saw some of the questions out of the corner of my eye. You know, the pandemic really has sort of blown the doors off in terms of, you know, remote working, and, you know, can you work with us if you're you know, not in the same country or the same city? And the answer to that is, of course, you know, yes, and it doesn't matter, and it can follow all kinds of shapes and Can it be part-time? Yes, it can. Can it be 3 days here and then, you know, a full-time for a month in a month? So, you know, any shape and any kind of creative variation on doing it is possible. And because we can share media and files and keep in touch so effectively, you know, that's just, you know, growing and growing.
Yeah.
So we completely failed to show any clips, because the one thing we've been unable to do is make our video stream work without buffering. So anyway.
So what we can do is we could maybe get Lara to pop them in the chat box below, but we can send to everyone that's joined us on the webinar today. So we want to show 3 clips showcasing what these guys have made, and showing kind of the breadth as well. So we'll definitely share them with everyone afterwards, because it's a good way to spend 5 minutes watching those beautiful clips.
We might have to not share the cheetah one,
yes,
if we're putting it on, because that's not yet broadcast. But the other two,
I have to wait for that one.
yeah. I think if we're not doing it live, that one should stay.
Yeah, definitely. So we have got some questions, but before we get round to those, this is quite a big question, I guess. But what do you guys see as the future of filmmaking? Because, you know, we're in a huge boom period at the moment. You know, lots of the platforms and streamers are commissioning huge series. It's really exciting, particularly among young people. Everyone's really anxious about what's happening with the environment and climate change. We've obviously had COP. There's going to be another COP this year. You know, what do you guys see as the kind of the future of wildlife filmmaking? Both, I guess, for you guys, but just generally as well as an industry.
Well, I've got a kind of controversial answer to this question. Is one of the things about the streamers commissioning these enormous series, which they undoubtedly are, and I suspect may go on doing for a while, is the only trouble with this is it's sort of slightly industrialized the filmmaking process, and what I would like to see, and I hope we will see, is that smaller independent filmmakers will start to find more of a voice and a place again. Because I feel at the moment we're losing that a little bit, you know, and it's all getting, you know, at the moment we're into a situation where we've got a lot of kind of corporate growth, but actually, I'm sounding old now, aren't I? But if you went back, if you go back a few years, there was a great, you know, there was a great movement in single films and single filmmakers and opportunities for, you know, for single films and filmmakers, and I don't see so much of that at the moment, but I believe it's going to come back, and I think within Maramedia we'd like to try and be enablers to see that coming back, because as we see these people coming through the ranks who are really talented and interesting, what I'd like to see is them, you know, making their own films rather than fit it into a corporate jigsaw, you know. I hope it doesn't sound too negative, because I think the NHU is wonderful, and Silverback and so on, and they make some great stuff, but I'd like to see some movement in the, you know, the kind of the sort of, you know, the genre of a single filmmaker and smaller films.
Yeah.
And I think that's much more prevalent in Europe, and we work a lot with European broadcasters and companies, and I think, you know, it would be great to, because it allows for slightly more creativity, because particularly when you're entering into it as well, because if you can only enter into a very small cog as part of a, you know, a great big corporate Planet series, there's not masses of room for editorial creativity. That, you know, technically there is, but the idea of people that are really passionate about a subject or a species and a single thing, I think it would be great to see more of that.
Yeah, it's I mean, I have to say, actually, so we've obviously just had our entries for our so we have a Panda Awards, which are kind of the natural history industries BAFTAs, if you like, or Oscars. And then we also have what we call the official selection, and that for us is a real platform for those really independent films made by authentic voices. And there's some really, really exciting stuff this year. And I think, you know, platforms like YouTube, actually, I think there's a really good, you know, for those definitely entering the industry, it's a really great way to showcase your stories in kind of some of that shorter form, So I'm with you, but I think there's always going to be that indie edge, isn't there? It's always gonna, people love those 1 hour indie films. So hopefully they will definitely stay, and hopefully the growth of the industry will hopefully see a growth in those as well. Find where they get broadcast, though, I think is one of the issues. But it's a really exciting time, isn't it, to be in the industry because of that growth.
It is. It's funny because the growth, it can't, it's got to stop at some point, because there's only so many animals in the world, and we know that these precious places are decreasing, and it's certainly got quite industrial at the moment. And one of the things is the growth in big technologies, in stabilized camera rigs and cameras attached to cars and everything being supersized, is that the cost of it means that actually you can't spend as long in the field. So you might get some spectacular images, but are you really unlocking the secret of the lives of those characters you're filming, actually? And I'm got a feeling we might be losing a bit of that. It's like the kind of the naturalist pacing the field. It's that is a sort of skill and a passion that's sort of a little bit in decline at the moment, and I'd love to see more people just out there, actually, maybe not doing filming, just out there starting to enjoy swallows and house martins and blue tits and lions or zebras or anything, because it's the film grows out of the passion and the interest for what's there, so it's sort of, in terms of natural world, it sort of feels natural world first, and then let the film find its place in the ecosystem.
Yeah, gosh, it's quite a big question, to be fair. We do have quite a few questions, so we haven't got much time left, so I want to quickly go through these to make sure everyone feels listened to. So one question which you've kind of addressed, Nigel, actually, from Rob, says, do you think remote working will be here to stay post-COVID? I'd love to move back to Scotland, but I'm worried about limiting my career options by leaving Bristol. And there's actually another question as well about whether you do really have to be in Bristol, or whether you think it's a disadvantage if you're not in Bristol. What's your view?
Definitely not a disadvantage being in Scotland. We've got a researcher who went in that direction, Eleanor Lane, and she came from True to Nature, and she moved across to Maramedia because she found Bristol a little bit too intense, and she just wanted to feel a bit of space around her, and she's joined our team, and she's very happy. And so definitely not a disadvantage, and you may find your career moves more quickly up here with us.
Yeah, and I think there are there's BBC Science, there are other avenues, so you can move between production companies. There are actually more than you would think outside Bristol, and a lot of them will take remote working people. And I think it doesn't. It's great to be in Bristol because there is a lot, but it's not the only place you can be. And if you're able to move between places, if you can be a bit flexible, the ideal is if you want to live here, there are opportunities here. But if you can move back and forth, if you're starting out your career, then even better. You can experience everything. And be flexible.
There are production companies in London and in Southampton, and in the north of England,
Cornwall.
Cornwall, Hampshire, in fact, and in Europe as well. If you can, we work a lot with Austria and France, and so maybe that's a great kind of, if you're footloose and fancy free, don't limit yourself, because actually you might find some really interesting opportunities that mean that your unique skill set gets noticed quicker and allows you to develop quicker, and by just spreading yourself around. But there obviously are lots of opportunities in Bristol too, so I think
someone's actually asked very specifically, would somebody based in Edinburgh be able to work for Maramedia?
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you also touched on this also a little bit, Nigel. You know, oh, it's just gone. I was going to ask about, oh no, it's there. Can you work part-time on wildlife productions, or are they always full-time? Because obviously, you know, when we talk about emerging talent, we don't just mean, you know, young people. It could be people that are maybe trying to have a second career, or, you know, have maybe had a family. You know, do you think it's more flexible now, to kind of have that more flexible working?
Definitely. Jackie, did you want to say something on that?
Yeah. It depends slightly what you're aiming to do. I think it depends if you're you know, a production coordinator and you're wanting to organize things, then you can certainly work out ways of flexible working. I think if you're wanting to be a researcher, you know, unless it's a very specific thing, I think you want to look at it on a case by case basis, but it's not a no.
Yeah,
you know, we it's possible. It depends very much what the project is and what you're aiming to do.
Nice. So we've also got a question from Isla. So she's a graduate scientist. So what role would be most appropriate or easiest for her to kind of make her move into the film industry?
Researcher, you know, if you've got some stories, you know, studying something really interesting about water voles or hamsters or sharks, then tell us about it, and we'd be really interested to hear from you. But also potentially, you know, camera assistant, if you're really a fieldy person who loves being out there and doesn't mind, you know, getting dirty and carrying heavy tripods and, you know, spending hours waiting for an Arctic fox to pop out of a hole.
You can do. The other thing I would say is that don't necessarily, if you're wanting to gain experience, you might do well to come and talk to us about it, you know, about wildlife, but then go and work for another production company where you're, you know, there are a lot of production companies also, particularly in Scotland, the industry is really growing, that are making non-wildlife, but they might be making lifestyle or science or arts or anything. But if you're wanting to be a camera assistant, you know, go and spend 3 months camera assisting anything, you'll gain the same technical skills, and we would look at that. Keep your passion going for wildlife in your spare time, and then when an opportunity arises, we'd probably be more likely to take someone that had done 6 months on a cooking show but had brilliant technical skills. You know, don't ignore that sort of side and think I can only do wildlife. It's a really good way, and there's masses of jobs around in sort of associated bits of TV.
Yeah, so there's lots of transferable skills, aren't there, between, you know, you don't just have to have wildlife experience. I think that's a really, really good tip, Jackie.
Yeah.
Somebody actually asked, which roles in your team are field roles? So you actually go out and shoot. So do researchers ever go out in the field, for example?
Yep, all the time.
Yep, all the time.
Is there anyone that doesn't go out in the field?
There's people who don't go. People who don't like it and don't want to, don't have to. Most people on our team do, but some on the production management and sort of accountancy sort of bits tend not to. We try to make them occasionally, but sometimes they just won't do it, will they?
Yeah, we don't go out as much as we would like, but
Nice. Right. That's quite a long question here. I'm just thinking. Someone said, do you think COVID will have an impact on filming in third world countries? So you kind of touched on that actually, Nigel, when you were talking about your Chasing the Rains production. This is pre-COVID actually, you were already working with in-country talent, and I think that's something, you know, the industry wants to encourage. But what's, you know, I guess from those based in the UK, do you think it will limit opportunities, COVID, or do you think it will stay the same?
No, I think it's because it's opened people's minds to new ways of doing stuff, you know. But I wouldn't categorize it as third world countries. I would just say the world, you know, because, you know, for example, we've got really close relationships with a few filmmakers in Norway, and we've had that going for a long time. And had we been doing a Norwegian film during COVID, I know we would have brought it off with like a easy. It wouldn't have made any difference at all, because we had just mobilized the people we knew in Norway, and they would have just carried on, you know. And you know, Kenya again, you know, and Kenya certainly wouldn't see itself as a third world country. It would see itself as much as, you know, certainly second world, and with aspirations, you know. So you know, and it's the same there. It's building up its own infrastructure, you know. The sort of the seeds are all already there, and I think that's true, you know, right across the planet. And to be responsible environmentally, you know, I think it's a good way to go. Interestingly, you know, we're still seeing this show was shot by 80,000 cameramen across 27 countries across a million days. You know, our aspiration is this show was shot by one cameraman for a very long time, you know, in one place, who moved around a bit. You know. It's quite
what a gig that would be for that camera person. Right, we've only got a few minutes left. So another question from Joseph Anthony is, what's your top tips for a successful pitch? So Jackie, I assume that's what you're out in LA doing at the moment. So very front in your mind. So how developed does an idea need to be typically? And do you need to have some starting footage?
Generally, yes.
Definitely helps to have some images, you know, and then you can hang the whole thing on that, because you can pitch something with remarkable images and a well-told story, or a piece of music. So something that makes people jump up is good, or a beautiful, you know, often a really nice treatment with some pictures, even if it's one page, something that just makes people sit up. That's a bit different. I don't know what. If I knew the secret to that, I would be richer in commissions than we are. I mean, being passionate about it. If I think, do you think, Jackie?
Yeah, no, I think being passionate, and I mean, if you're talking about sort of more entry level pitches, I wouldn't make it too long. I would. People have very little time, and most people will have heard it before, because most ideas have been you know, around before. So I think it's passion, some visuals, and a great title, and be able to say it quite simply, and then you expand if there's a bite, as it were, and you can follow it up.
Title is good. I didn't tell it. I was talking. Remember Simon King, the cameraman? He was in the Viewers, and a couple of days ago I was chatting to him on the phone, and he said, I'm on the Maca, and it's, you know, we need to do something about restoring the Maca. And I don't know who said it. It was like, why don't we do Maca makeover, you know? And it's like, that's silly, but it's a good title, you know. And straight away, I could sell that, Maca makeover, because it's so daft and it's so catchy, you know. So a really good title helps with a pitch, 100%.
So someone's actually asked, what's the best way to get in touch with you guys to run an idea past you? I guess it's just drop you an email, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Drop us an email. It's not hard to work out what our emails are. I'm not going to say it live. Research.
They are actually very easy, your emails to be.
They are. So we're not difficult to track down, and we always try and, you know, answer as quick as we can, or we pass them on, and we have an info email too. So yeah, we're not difficult to find.
Yeah, cool. Someone's asked, do you work with photographers as well as filmmakers?
Not
massively.
But that doesn't mean we wouldn't like to, or if somebody had a passionate photography based subject, that we wouldn't want to hear from them, because we'd want to hear from anyone who's passionate and interested. The stills tend to be done by the people shooting the show or people on location, and you can never have enough stills. We it's a critical part of it, isn't it, Jackie?
But we rarely would employ someone to just take stills, you know, in our model. So, but often a lot
some of the
our
skills be transferable, though.
Yeah, no, 100%. In fact, a lot of our camera guys came from being a stills wildlife photographer and then moved into video. So, yeah, no, skills definitely 100%.
Right. We've only got time for one more question. I'm just trying to pick There's quite a few left. Are there any camera courses that you can do part-time? Actually, this is a really good question, because it is a bit of unless you do a kind of filmmaking degree, how do you get that experience with a camera and kit? Have you guys got any tips on how people do kind of any courses or organizations that they could look up? You know, things like, I guess, screen skills would be a really good one to have a look at.
Yeah, they do lots. I mean, that's where sometimes doing a fast turnaround show that's not wildlife, you build up your skill sets. So you know, there are a lot of jobs if you want to be a runner, and then when you're or a sort of camera assistant runner, and then while you're on that job, if that job is shooting a shed load of footage, that's when you get a chance to experiment, and you'll probably be working, you know, you'll get to use the camera and be filming, but it won't be wildlife, but you will have learned how to use the camera, and then you are knowledgeable, and then you can move on. So that's often a really, really good way of gaining practical hands-on experience. And then, you know, I
was just going to say, also working post-production houses. So you have production companies, then you have the guys that kind of do all the editing, color grading, but also actually generally supply kit as well. And actually working in those rooms where they're getting the cameras ready, it's such a good way to learn the kit, isn't it? Yeah.
And then volunteering at festivals. I mean, you know, like Wild Screen or like any film festival, they will all take runners or technical runners, you know, and you get to you know, work with all sorts of kit and get a feel for it.
Yeah.
And often charities will have an arm where they want to make something quite simple that you can offer your skills, or you can help someone else, you know, within that, where you'll get to have a go with the kit quicker. I mean, that's the trouble. If you go to a very big glossy production, you'll be quite a long way from the camera for quite a while. So you know, if you want to build up your skills, I would
That's cool.
do that.
You've got charities now and NGOs making really good content, and that's a very, very good tip. Very good entry level tip, actually. You know, don't just look at production companies. Have a look at, you know, Scotland, the Big Picture, and Trees for Life, and the RSPB, and the National Trust for Scotland, and, you know, Save the Elephants. Just look at what they're doing with media and what they're generating in terms of imagery and films. It's getting quite sophisticated.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah.
And your peers, I bet you, if you talk to there'll be someone who's got some form of camera, and you can sort of learn alongside somebody else who's also learning, and share tips. I mean, we always, you know, often researchers will come, and then they will start to help on a shoot, and then they enjoy it, and they you know, start to do a little bit the next shoot. They might do more. You know, one of our team is now shooting some of the wildlife for one of our series, who came on as a sort of production assistant and just thought they'd do that, then became a researcher, is now a producer, and is shooting. So smaller companies will give you a much wider range of experience in that sense.
Nice. Right. I'm afraid we're going to have to end it there. We've actually gone over by 1 minute, which is bad, but we just a few minutes late, so it's fine. Thank you so much, Jackie and Nigel, for giving us your time, especially you, Jackie, in from LA. Really appreciate it. And I think you've given some really brilliant tips, but really tangible things that people can do if they really want to make that first step into the industry. So for you, those of you watching, obviously thank you for joining us today. If you want any kind of more advice or tips, please check out the Wild Screen Network. We do, it's a membership, but we do offer discounted rates for emerging talent. There's lots of, as well as webinars, there's lots of networking events, and we also show jobs and things like that. But also, obviously, get in touch with the guys at Maramedia if you are based up in Scotland. It sounds like they're always looking for really good new talent, so please do get in touch with them. Also, Film Access Scotland, Screen Scotland, if you're up there, are really good places to look, and Screen Skills, as we mentioned as well, just a good way to find out how to kind of upskill and kind of work out what's the best way to approach a career in the industry. So our next webinar will be on Wednesday the 29th of June at 3 o'clock, and we're going to be talking about distribution. with David Cornwall from Scorpion TV. I have no idea how distribution works, so I will definitely be checking out that one. I'm sure you guys do. But yeah, definitely sign up for that webinar. And just thank you again, Nigel, Jackie, for giving us your time and insight. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. And I hope the pictures go well, Jackie.
Thank you.
Nice to see you guys.
It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye. Good evening. Bye bye.
After hitting the water and grabbing the fish, the game still isn't over for the osprey and its quarry. He needs to get airborne again. His talons are equipped with adhesive scales and long curved claws for an unbreakable hold. But a big trout can match him weight for weight, and the instinct of the fish is to swim down. There are tales of weak and hungry ospreys being dragged to the bottom, unable to release the fish or lift off from the water successfully. But osprey wings are adapted to give maximum lift from the water. And this male is young and strong. This is a struggle he's destined to win. In the lands of the north, it's said that the journey matters much more than the destination. For the next few months, this Arctic fox will face challenges that will test his intelligence, resilience, and brute strength to the limit. If he succeeds, his bloodline will endure. The bloodline of the Stormborn.